counting 6/8 rhythm. Great musicianship begins with excellent rhythm. So in order for our students to feel comfortable with 6/8 time signature, they really need to feel the dotted quarter note pulse. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you see on page 8, accents occur naturally on beats 1 and 4. So let's go ahead and, of course, if the student is there with you, I can't stand up or else my head's going to be cut off in this video. So I'm just going to step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, and sway back and forth. But it is better if you have your students step around the room. So once they get used to that constant dotted quarter note pulse, then they can clap out the rhythm of 5 fat turkeys like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that's really a lot like Delcros, isn't it? My goodness, you have your feet going in a very, very nice pulse and you're clapping along with the rhythm of that piece. So let's have your students do that lots of times so they get really, really comfortable with it. We need to count with enthusiasm all the time because that enthusiasm will rub off on our students. So now let's have our students go ahead and say the words to 5 fat turkeys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 5 fat turkeys are we. We slept all night in a tree. When the cook came around, we couldn't be found. And that's why we're here, you see. And you notice I gave the full value of that dotted quarter note tied to the 8th note at the end. So you could have your students go ahead and clap the patterns below. The first one is at 138. 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then when they are good at that, you can make it a little bit faster. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, and then when they're comfortable with that, it's much easier to actually play a piece in 6/8 when you're feeling it in 2. So then we can put the metronome on at 76. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And the first example, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So let's all enjoy it when our students can count 3/8 and 6/8 time without any issue at all. But it all starts with internalizing the rhythm. So get our students up, walking, marching, swaying to the beat. Hi everyone. I'm just looking at a really great piece in 6/8 time, and I would like to talk to you about form, how important it is for students to learn form when they are young, because it helps the student understand every piece they play better. They also can see that oftentimes it's not that challenging because sections recur throughout the piece. So in the beginning of this one, on page 10, so that's your A section. And then there is another A section, but there is just a little bit of a difference, and that happens here. Now the melody has thirds in it. So now is the A prime section. measure 16, the pickup into measure 17, we have the B section. And then the very next section is the B prime section. And how come it's B prime? Because it's really just like the first B section we hear, but it's up the octave. And it's also quieter. Okay, so that's the importance of form. The student looks at it and says, oh my gosh, it's just A, B form, and that's it. And then I play a G chord at the end, and it's a lively, exciting piece. So now let's go ahead and talk about balance between the hands. When we ask our students to bring out the melody, we would like our students to understand where the melody is. So it's very important to cultivate this sense of listening. So we could play the beginning of this piece in two ways. The first time I'm going to play it, I'll bring out the melody. And the second time I play the piece for the student, I would bring out the other hand, which is not the melody. So here we go. So you notice if a student says that they like that one better, oh dear, they're going to really have to listen to that again. We might have to play those two ways again and ask your student to really listen and where is the melody. And they probably will figure it out that when they play the hand that is not the melody too loudly, it gets really heavy, as I demonstrated for you just a few minutes ago. So we want to make sure that the student can bring out the melody. So I have a few ideas for you. You could actually stand behind the student and play the right hand on their right shoulder and play the left hand on their left shoulder. And you wouldn't believe it, but if you do play with nice balance between the hands, they will be able to sense that feeling of more weight in your right hand compared to your left hand. Another good way is to put a scarf or a handkerchief, something light, maybe even a Kleenex, on the hand that has to be quieter. And they will get the idea that that has to be a little bit more playing on top, has to have a sense of playing on the top of the keys more. The third way I get students to check whether they're listening or not is I have them stop anywhere within the phrase and they have to really listen to both hands and they have to assess if the melody line is really coming through. So I think I'll do this part at the A1 section. And then you have them listen and they'll say, gosh, my left hand thumb was a little bit too loud. And then you'll say, okay, let's go ahead and try it again. And this time let's stop on the exact same beat and listen for your right hand melody to come out. Oh, that sounds a lot better. So those are three really good ways to help students to listen to themselves play, to assess their own playing, and really make sure that they have a very pleasing balance between the hands. So in this particular right hand gesture, the rolls start from the thumb and then the wrist has to roll down and then up. So actually I call that the smile on a smiley face. And when the student plays the 4 chord, they have to be very sure that they release their thumb. And then this little zigzaggy kind of physical gesture, that's just a little bit of rotation, moving back and forth between 2 and 3. And then that is another smile on the smiley face. And then over the moon. And when the student uses these physical gestures, which are all over succeeding at the piano, right, completely reinforced and reviewed every step of the way, Then the student will play with nuance. So, you know what? We could then have our student play in transposed keys. How about C major? So we can ask our students to go down to the key of C major or up to the key of C major, and again play the 1 and the 4 chords in their left hand, same with the right hand. And then have them go ahead and think of all these patterns by intervals so that they will be able to transpose well. And then the last key they can try is A major. And when they're finished with their playing, we can ask them if the balance between the hands was good. Were they satisfied? And let's hope our students say, yes, I was satisfied. Hi everyone. Now I would like to speak to you about having our students review the 1 and the 4 chord, or tonic and subdominant chord, in a lovely piece called Oh How Lovely Is the Evening. This particular piece is in 3/8 time. So let's have our students count aloud while they play or sight read the right hand melody. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So they got to measure 13 and they probably thought to themselves, ooh, is my melody in the right hand singing ding dong? Probably. And then the left hand comes in with a counter melody. So a note for teachers. Students learn what voicing is in the last level of SATP, grade 5. And that voicing is when we bring out one note in only one hand. And here we are only in grade 3 on page 17, but you could teach a little bit of voicing this early on for the left hand here. So taking a look at page 17 and measure 13, you could ask the student which voice should come out as the counter melody. Which one should be brought out louder? Would it be the lower voice? No, but the top voice would be lovely to match the title of the piece. So in order to do voicing, have the student play with a heavier thumb, but still on the outside tip of it, and listen for the 5th finger to be lighter and played with less weight. 1, 2, 3, and have them bring out the C and then bring out the C again. So that gives them something new to listen for. And the same thing with the 4 to the 1 chord at the end. You could have them voice the top D, and then, ooh, did you notice that I made that legato by holding on to my B flat with my 2nd finger and picked up the thumb and the 5th finger? And then I definitely made the B flat to the A legato. Beautiful. Okay, and then the last thing I want to talk to you about with this piece is we should ask our students, what kind of mood or character does this piece have? And they'll definitely say, oh, it should be peaceful. There are quite a few supplementary materials that you can start to use when students are in grade 3, and they're written at the bottom. Succeeding with a Master's, Volume 1, the Festival Collection, Book 2, Etudes with Technique, Book 2, In Recital, Book 3, and of course, so much that you can use from Write, Play, and Hear Your Theory every day, Sight Reading and Rhythm every day, Play Your Scales and Chords every day. So please get on www.helenmarley.com and you'll see correlation charts as well as all of those books. How wonderful it is when we bring to life the great composers for our students. Antonin Dvorak was a composer from the Czech Republic. He lived from 1841 to 1904. He wrote great symphonies, chamber music, songs, and of course, piano music. His Slavonic dances for piano duet are absolutely fantastic. He spent time in Iowa, can you believe that? And he composed the symphony called From the New World. And this piece that I will play for you today is the main theme from that fabulous symphony. It was first performed, which means it was premiered, in New York City's Carnegie Hall during the 1893 to 94 season, and that proved to be one of the best years of his life. So this is the Largo from the New World Symphony. And as I play it, I'd like for you to think about how slow it is, or the tempo, and also think about how long the phrases are, and also to watch my wrist in action. So the phrases are long 4-bar phrases. And even though there are quite a few slurs, and there's a slur in almost every measure, I think in order to get that feeling of a long line, we could connect all the way through, all the way to the end of that phrase. Same thing again. So let's create a 4-bar phrase. 1, 2, and 3, 4. And let's think about this next line. 1, 2. And again, we can connect. And you'll notice with my singing fluid wrist, I can keep the phrase going as if I were a woodwind player, right, or a violinist. So those beautiful 4-bar phrases are intoxicating to the listener. And let's make sure that we teach that with our students, always having them always listen to what they're playing and what you're demonstrating. And then you'll notice here, we want to make sure that this 5th interval to a 6th interval is easy for our students. So you could have them transfer their weight from down here to their 5th finger. And you notice they're playing with a very nice smile on the smiley face. And then they move to this next 5th and 6th. And that's so much better than doing this. Right, you notice fingers are flying, the wrist and the thumb and the fingers are tight, and there isn't any beauty in that phrase. So let's make sure that your left hand also moves fluidly so that it can sing the line. This lovely theme by Antonin Dvorak really teaches our students to be patient and very consistently count through these beautiful long phrases and give each note its full value. So how many times have you heard a student play a piece with dotted quarter notes and do this? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and even if they don't count out loud, then it's like this. Let's eradicate that unmusical playing, shall we? So one way to help our students count dotted quarter rhythms is actually not to count the and in between beats 1 and 2. It's okay if they start with counting it and clapping like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. And they make the ands gentle. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Because they're just not as important as the bigger beats, right? So then when they play, then let's have them count like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Now, counting like that will help them understand that the musical line must go forward so that the musical shape of the phrase isn't always clomping along or going along on a cobblestone street. So 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. And you'll also notice that I let my wrist drop really good teacher. And when the students are learning their dotted quarter notes, it's okay to put the and in between, but let it be gentle. And then let it disappear altogether so that they have a fine sense of musical direction. Hi. What is absolutely the best way to teach syncopation? The best way is through discovery learning. In discovery learning, students discover a new concept. They listen to you play syncopation first. And then you can start to count. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Ooh, another good place to put a tissue box touch release at the end. All right, so you count it, you play it, you have the student listen to certain sections of it, maybe a couple phrases a few times in a row, and then have them count along with you. So 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2. Ooh, let's do that again. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go ahead and clap the rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at them right in the eye. Have them clap with you, or clap back and forth. So you clap it, have the student clap it, teacher claps it, the student claps it. We look right in their eyes. We do it together. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. So back and forth and together. And then if the student, if you feel like the student needs to write in some counting, this is the perfect time, that very first lesson of learning the new piece. So you can also have your students tap it on their thighs. So let's take it from the beginning. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They can decide with you which patterns, which phrases have the exact same rhythm. Ooh, that'll make it easier for them. And you know, the very first week of practicing, I might just have them do just that. They clap out the rhythms of certain measures that you can mark with them in their lesson. Have them tap the rhythm on their thighs. They can use the metronome, of course, while they're doing that. And that's it for the first week of learning this piece. Hi. Sometimes when people speak of intervallic reading, others get really scared. But intervallic reading, or reading intervallically, means that the student knows the distance between the two keys. So we all know that this is a second. This is a third. A perfect fourth. Here comes the bride. perfect fifth, such as Baba Black Sheep or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. All right, a sixth interval is and then we have the seventh, and then we have an octave. So in this piece, the student can easily find those patterns in the music because they've been learning them all along in Succeeding at the Piano. So they can see space to a line note with 2 skipped as a fourth. Measure 3, space to a space note with 3 skipped in between. That's a fifth. A sixth, oh my gosh, that's also a space note to a line note with 4 skipped in between. The octave then becomes very easy for students to understand what that looks like, and the same thing for the seventh. There are 3 physical gestures which helps our students to listen for 3 kinds of staccato notes. So the first one is the basic woodpecker touch release, basic staccato. The wrist stays level with the forearm. It is not tight or rigid. It's not overly loose, but the entire playing apparatus starts above the keys and then goes to the key and then rebounds up and stops at the same place as it started. Then there are push-off touch releases where there is a slur and then a staccato note afterwards, and the sound must be short and crisp. So this particular touch release starts with a dropping motion or the drip drop roll. So the student drops, sinks into the bottom of the key, and then they find the next key they need to play. They play the key, and as soon as they play the key, then they roll forward and off the keys. So this would be a basic drip drop roll motion, but instead it needs to be short. So you notice that the wrist and the forearm go forward and off the key. And all of this wonderful power comes from the upper arm and the back. So that's a push-off touch release. And then a kick-off touch release. So can you tell the difference between a kick-off touch release, a staccato note, as compared to the push-off and the woodpecker basic staccato? I hope that you can. This opens up so many questions and discoveries with our students. They're curious about different sounds and what kind of physical gesture or touch release does it take to make the sound that they want to create. So at the end of this piece, When Love is Kind, on page 26 of grade 3, the student is asked to play a kickoff. Students stay really close to the keys, and as soon as they play each key, the wrist and the forearm kicks off the key towards the wood of the piano. And one thing that I'll remind you of, let's make sure that the student isn't reaching or stretching for any key. As soon as the student plays the key, the thumb needs to go to the rest of its fingers, finger friends I should say. And And then when the student plays the G at the end, their hand is all in one ball shape. So again, no stretching or reaching. So we don't want any kind of tightening of the playing apparatus. So now I'll play When Love Is Kind, and you can hear the difference between the staccato notes that are push-offs. You'll also hear the difference between a woodpecker touch release, a basic staccato. You'll also see me just do this, and those are your basic staccatos. And then at the end of the piece, you'll see and hear 3 kickoff touch releases. I keep holding on to that G in the right hand. It's because I'm so focused on my left hand. Isn't that a lovely, lovely piece? And boy, do the students learn their intervals or review their intervals very well. In the famous Lullaby by Johannes Brahms, we have a very peaceful, tranquil feeling or character that goes throughout the entire piece. The first stage of learning any piece is when we teach our students to play with accuracy in 4 areas: notes, fingering, rhythm, and articulations. Whether you teach an entire piece in 1 week, or if you only have the student look at half of the piece, that is totally up to you and how much you think your student can learn. But when we think about accuracy in those 4 areas, how can we get our students to really play well in the lesson while we practice with them so that they are ready for 6 days of productive practicing at home? So let's go ahead and let's always play the melody first with this beautiful piece because it's such a famous melody. So we could play it, we could have the students listen to the recording, and we could have the students sing along with it. So there could be some snags, right? We could have the student who is not so comfortable with playing and counting dotted quarter rhythms. But you know, I really think when you use succeeding at the piano, you don't have any issue at all. So have the student go ahead and count it while they count the 8th note in between beats 2 and 3. But have them count that 8th note very quietly like this. I'll go ahead and count the pickups into measure 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2. 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2. And then go ahead and just count it and clap it so that your student is really watching you. 3 and 1, 2, 3. Have them clap it back. 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2. Many, many times until they're bored with it. They really know the rhythm. And then you can play it again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2. So I might actually have the student play that phrase first. They can go 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, and then get rid of those little ands. 3 and 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2. Or else their musical line will always suffer for it and it will always sound metronomic instead of beautifully phrased. All right, so that's the idea of the rhythm. You might have to talk about some of the fingering in the right hand so that the student knows exactly what they're supposed to do all week when they're practicing at home. And definitely have them do this in the lesson. Oh, I changed my fingering. Oh, it always has to be the same. Oh, that's it. And you know, you can always start with physical gestures. So I should say you can always start a piece by using physical gestures as well. So we can teach our students to drop and roll and then drop onto the D and then slide towards the wood of the piano and then drop to the bottom of the keys. So drop, roll, and then they drop to the D, slide towards the wood of the piano. Lots of kids will want to pick up their fourth finger, right? So have them listen. Oh, do you hear it connecting to the high note? Oh, yes, I hear that. So the four skills that we want our students to really focus on in that first stage of learning the piece is notes, fingering, rhythm, and articulations. So articulations, this whole piece is legato, so they don't have to think about any kind of staccato. So then in the left hand, the very first week of study, I think I would have them just block the tonic and the dominant seventh chords. So we could say half the week, go ahead and play it hands apart, and then in the middle of the week, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, and go ahead and put it hands together. 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, and really that's enough for many students. It's just half the piece. And then you'll be ready for the next week where they will have all those skills perfectly learned so that you can go on to the next stage of learning the piece and then start the second two lines on the first stage of learning a piece. I find that if I tell my students what those 4 stages of learning a piece are, then they understand the goals that are ahead of them. And they really make sure that they're trying to be as accurate as possible throughout the week in notes, fingering, rhythm, and articulations. And the practice strategies at the beginning, they ask, in the right hand, find and circle the 2 octaves, and then in the left hand, find and circle the 7th, the melodic 7th. So, some nice ways for us to teach that lovely piece by Brahms to our students. Well, what else would you be listening for when both hands are playing?
The voicing.
The voicing. Usually voicing happens when you have a melody and some sort of other figure or voice or harmony in the same hand, right? Like your romanza. But this would be balance between the hands. Are you
that's what
thinking
you call
about
it.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But this is a Baroque piece. So most of the time your left hand and your right hand, are they really going to be where one hand's going to be much louder than the other? No, because do you remember what that's called when you have point against point, note against note? Left hand is interesting, so is the right hand. It's contrapuntal. Yeah, can you say that?
Sure.
Contrapuntal, yes. So you have a main melody in which hand? Right here to start. Want to play it? Da, 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 da. Good. And then where do you hear the left hand playing the same melody? It doesn't. Da, 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 da. Yes. Good. So can you play just your right hand by itself so you hear that melody, that theme, and then stop your right hand when you get to the downbeat of the second measure. All right? And the reason why is because if you started the left hand where you just did, then it's exactly or pretty much the same as your right hand, da, da, and then you could land on that A. Do you see that? Yeah. So what's exactly the same in the left hand and the right hand? Yes, that is good. And then it's slightly different in the eighth notes, right? Yes. Okay. So can you play just the right hand up to the A, and then we'll play the left hand up to its A. Very good. And then the left hand. Bum, bum, bum. Good. Now, can you keep them both nice and even? Ooh, are you satisfied with that? That was good. And then your right hand. Very nice. So now let's go a little further because your right hand is just begging to play a little bit longer, right, for that first phrase, right? So let's play the entire first phrase in the right hand. And then you're going to let me know by playing the left hand how far you'll go for the left hand's first phrase. Okay. Okay, so that's the first phrase, right? All right, and I like that you did unit practicing. That was very sweet of you. But the first phrase really does end at the rest, right? In the right hand. Da, 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 right? Yeah, that ends right. And then you have a next phrase, right? What is cut time? The usual time signature of 4/4 or a big C always means 4 beats per measure. And cut time is when you see a big C with a line right through it or 2/2 time signature. And this means that there are 2 beats in every measure. And the half note gets 1 beat. So at the very beginning of this page of Hot Salsa, pieces in 2/2 time or cut time look the same as in 4/4 time, but are counted in 2 instead of 4. So let's clap and count in 2 ways. So first we're going to count it in 4. Ready? I'm at the top of page 28, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we counted in cut time, there are 2 beats per measure. So every quarter note will get half a beat. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So this is a really good time signature for energetic and quickly paced pieces. So hot salsa, I'm going to play just 2 lines, and I'm going to count it in 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm getting exhausted just counting it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it sounds very metronomic. So in order to get a feeling of liveliness, let's go ahead and count it in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, that was so much easier to play when I thought of the whole piece in 2. There is a touch release at the very end of the piece, a kickoff. So if we decided to play a woodpecker touch release, it would sound heavy, wouldn't it? If we did a push-off touch release where the wrist comes off the keys, 1, 2, 1, it would slow everything down. But a kickoff, we stay very close to the keys and we just kick forward with our hand, wrist, forearm, and elbow all going in the same direction at the same time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And at the end, we could definitely put in a push-off or another kickoff. 1, 2, 1, 2. Boy, is that fun. Good evening, everyone. Let's talk about performance strategies. Performance strategies are those that help the student play in front of an audience. Students spend so much time practicing by themselves that many of them are really quite freaked out when they have to play for an audience. So performance strategies will help our students relax and enjoy the performance. These are different than practice strategies. As you know, practice strategies are strategies and practice steps that are learned in the piano lesson and used every day while students are practicing at home so that they learn their music. So once they've learned their music, we can apply performance strategies. So a really good performance strategy is to have your students think about their number of pieces as their repertoire. And as it says in this book, the goal of practice is to play. So yes, there will be people that will only practice for themselves, but really our goal is to get our students ready for that public performance, whether it be a group lesson, a master class, a recital, my goodness, playing at church, in front of friends, in front of their grandparents, all kinds of goals that we need to set for our students so that they will become more and more comfortable with playing in front of others. So have a special group of pieces that you can play for family and friends. The pieces in this group should be pieces that you have already learned and that you review from time to time for fun. The group of pieces is called your repertoire. And this is a French name, a French word, repertoire. And even the youngest students say, what did you call that? What did you call that thing when we have a bunch of pieces ready to play? And you say, repertoire. And the students say, repertoire back, and they feel very, very accomplished. So they can create a list of pieces so that they can remember actually the titles of the pieces, and then add onto the list as the student learns more, and then you can detract from the list as well. So this is a really good way to have our students be prepared really for any month out of the year that somebody asks them to play in front of an audience. When students learn to play octaves, we must remember that the wrist and the forearm must be flexible. We don't want to see that. Flying fingers. We don't want to see a hand that is reaching or stretching for anything, because this only tightens up the entire playing apparatus, which can lead to damage later on. So once they play the first note, have them feel a nice sinking into the bottom of the keys, and you'll notice that my fingers are really quite close together. They are a family of 5-finger friends. And then they roll to the 5th finger. You notice that they roll. It's kind of like a swaying motion down, and when they sway all the way to the bottom of the 5th finger, then they completely lift off of their thumb as soon as they play the octave below. So, 1. And the same thing happens at the end of this piece. Even though there is a D in the middle of the octave, we want our students to sink and then roll to the left as soon as they are right behind the key that needs to be played. And I don't mean physically their torso in front, but as soon as their hand is lined up and they can see their knuckle right there, and the 2nd finger is completely in line. And then they can roll again to the 5th finger. So that lovely little piece is by Alexander Reinagel. I'm going to show you the difference between a rolling wrist and a non-rolling wrist when playing the piano. I'll play 2 lines of a lovely work called Mountain Sunrise by Edwin McLean, and I will play it in 2 ways, and I'd like for you to watch me, observe my wrists and my forearms, and I'd also like for you to really listen to the sound that I create. opposed to this. So I hope that you said the first time that you heard me and observed my physical apparatus at work, you were thinking to yourself, wow, she looks tight. The sound is pretty metronomical. It's not, doesn't have really any phrase shape, and she definitely is stiff in the wrists. The second way that I played this part of the piece, I used my wrists in a flexible way to keep the sound beautiful and for the wrist and the forearm to be comfortable, as well as the elbows and the upper arm with a nice free arm. And you'll notice that it was easier for me to phrase. So, how do we do this? In slower motion, it's really just the drip, drop, roll motion. So the student drips, drops into the key, and then they play the third finger, and then when they play the thumb, that's when their wrist and hand rolls forward and off the keys. And then in the right hand, same motion, drop to the bottom of the keys, just play the A, keep the wrist in line with the form, and then when we play the C, then the wrist rolls forward and off the keys. Is that I hear in my head, oh, this is a 1 chord, then I'm going to 4, and then to 5, and then to 1. So remember, subdominant, the 4 chord, it sounds like it needs to go someplace, and then the 5 chord is always like you've gone on vacation somewhere, and then 5 chord leads you home. So while I play this entire piece, Mountain Sunrise, listen for the phrase direction. Think about how flexible my wrists are when I roll them, and how free my upper arm is. Just play your top note. Good, so good, feel that sense of arm weight. You can do a half Russian roll, yeah, or do a full Russian roll, good, good. And can you keep your fingers on the keys? There you go. Right, so your wrist isn't really coming up, is it? It's kind of just swinging, right? And then you roll forward. listen for is what kind of sound do you want for the A? Is it loud? Is it like that, or is it quiet? It's quiet, right? Now that is beautiful. Oh boy, that took a lot of focus, didn't it? Good for you, Joshua. Oh my gosh. So where are you going to use that exact same sound and the physical gesture to taper really basically the phrases that look like that? So where's another one? That one, yes, absolutely good. And where would be another one? There are two more in this piece. That one, that's the third one, yes, and then the fourth one, yes. Okay, so that's your focus for the week, all right, to make those really, really sound good. Okay. All right, because the reason for the time to compose actually goes on this piece. All right, so why don't you sight read this piece? The more we get together, all right, and then we'll do something compositionally with it the second time around. Okay, so what key are you in? You're in the key of G. And what are some other things you look at in order to sight read well? Okay, you look at the fingering, right? You look at, what else? Even before fingering. The notes. All right, and you really want to find some patterns in your score, right? So if you put those four notes together, what chord do you play? G major. And do you think that those three notes form a G major tonic chord? Yes, they certainly do. And I know why you said fingering, because there's quite a few finger changes on those Gs. Ooh. So do you think that you could sight read those and implement those finger changes? I think you can. 1, 4, 5. Why don't you just go ahead and ghost those on the piano? 1, 4, and then you're ready for the 5. Good. All right, and where do you see this exact same phrase again? Yes, you're so right. And what about the second phrase? Is this same or different? It's same again, except for just the very, very end of it. All right, so then the only part that's really different is up there. For your friends are my friends, and my friends are your friends. Okay, so can you go ahead and ghost that with both hands? Both hands ghosting. All right, and then before you play it, you really need to see what's going on at the end, right, with that coda. Okay, so you see a pattern of what in your right hand?
G major scale.
Yes, that's a G major scale. And what about those two chords at the end? Are they both tonic chords?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And there is a jump. In which hand?
Right
Where?
Oh. Left hand.
Well, actually, you're right. There is one in the right hand. I didn't see it from so far away. You're so right. Where does the right hand have to go?
Over here.
Oh my gosh. At the same time that your left hand has to jump. Oh goodness. So how could you practice that? Ooh, before you sight read.
Ghosting.
You could ghost them, right, and use that nice play prepare practice strategy. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start at that G major chord. Yes, yes, and then play prepare. Good. And if you really want to play a play prepare the way it's really supposed to be, Joshua, don't worry, I don't have a cold. You say to yourself this, play it, and then you say, ready, and then you look at the two notes. Oh my gosh. Don't go crazy because your eyes can't go like that, right? So you might want to look at the right hand first, right, and then look at the left hand. Right? So that's what you do for ready, okay? Or you might want to look at the left hand first. We could experiment with that. So which hand do you look at first? So then you go ready, and then you really look quicker, and then when you move, you move very quickly. Ooh, okay, so you want to try it? So this time go ahead and look at your right hand first. So ready? Look. Oh, you can't move until I really say move. Oh, you know what? I think the ready is actually where you just say to yourself, I'm ready to do this practice strategy. Okay, so just look at your hands. Ready? Good. Look. But you can't move until I tell you to. Or you tell yourself it. Okay, so ready? Good. Look. Move. Okay, well, you're not supposed to play anything. That's just as you just ghosted.
Yeah.
Okay, you just prepare it. Okay, let's do this again. Ready? Look. Move. Good. All right, so this time look at the hand that you didn't look at first before. Do you remember which hand you looked at first?
No.
Okay, so let's do it one more time. Look at your right hand first. But I liked how you went back and forth really quickly. That was excellent. Ready? Look. Move. Oh, good. Okay, now let's change it up. Now let's take a look at your left hand note first. Key first, I should say. Ready? Look. Move. All right. Did you think that either one of them was easier?
Yeah.
Was it looking at the right hand or looking at the left hand?
I think left hand was a little easier.
Okay. Maybe it's because you've done it 4 or 5 times though in a row too. Could be. All right, so let's go ahead and do that one more time. This time, can you play both of those chords? Okay, so ready? Look. Move. Pretty darn good. Let's try it again. Ready? Look.
Oh.
It's okay. Why don't we say it together? Ready? Look. Move. It's probably better when you do it, right, than your teacher, right? Because then you know exactly your own rhythm, right? Good for you. Do you want to do it one more time before you play the whole piece? Okay. That's good. And you have how many beats to get ready for that last chord?
2.
So it really is perfect. Ready, look, move, right? You've got time. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and sight read it from the beginning. You aced it at the end. Very good. So if you were doing student achievement testing and you were in front of a judge doing a sight reading, it's probably going to be easier than this, but it might not be. I've got to look at some of those examples. Okay, then I'll give them to you. But what do you think you would be saying to yourself as to what could be better?
Being clearer on the notes.
Well, your notes were pretty darn good, weren't they? Did you get faster and faster as you went along? Because you got more and more confident, right? So even if you start slowly, just keep the tempo the same, right? Because it is sight reading, right? And they're just going to say, oh, that was really even. Okay, right. They just will, right? And you'll be like, so boring, the tempo I took. But it's probably better that way, right? Than to mess up, right, at a faster tempo, right? All right, so this week, I'd like for you to, for your time to compose, make up your own ending for this piece, okay? So you're going to play to the downbeat of measure 16, and then you get to play whatever you want for that last line. And since you're so good at that play, prepare move now, it would be really fun if you did something that was like that. Right, you could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, right, all in G major, or you could go G major, D7. Okay, if you wanted to add a 4 chord in, you certainly could. If you wanted to add scales in, you can. Does that sound good? So we'll do that for next week. Okay. Okay, so. How about I get to play Clementine, and I'd like for you to circle the only 6th interval in this piece. Where's the only 6th interval? Yes, can you go ahead and circle it, and then we'll play it. Very good. All right, you probably don't want to sing it out loud, do you? No. All right, so how about if I play it while I'm going to look at the music and I want you to play it back? That's the opening. Good. And then. Play the first 2 phrases. That was really good. You also played it with nice phrase direction. Good for you. So if you were alone, by yourself, would you sing that? If nobody was around in the house? Would you like to sing that? No, you're just not a singer.
No.
Not at all? Really? Not in any way, shape, or form? Even if nobody was in the house? You wouldn't go around the house going, in a cavern, in a canyon. You wouldn't? No, and even at the piano, you wouldn't go, in a canyon. You wouldn't sing it alone? You could, Joshua. You could. Because singing it helps you to understand the phrase shape. Da 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 da. Right? So you could do that. And also when you're playing by ear, it gets it in your ear a little bit more before you play it. Well, that was very, very good playing by ear. Good for you. So you'll think about singing at home. You don't sing in the shower?
Sometimes.
Oh, finally, we found a place where you sing. Good, all right. I sing when I cook. Yeah, I like to sing when I cook. Time the cooking, I sing. Yeah. So. All right, so how was My Country 'Tis of Thee?
It was easy.
It was easy. Good for you. And you even added the pedal in?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. And where is a C major chord where you play hand? Oh, I'm going lower there than you.
C.
C, high C, good, all right. Okay.
For here, can
Mhm.
I just go like?
You could, but the reason for this fingering is it's traditional C major fingering. Do you see that? So whenever we can use the scale fingering that we have used so often in our scales, it's good to play it in pieces. That's a very good question, right? So you look at the pattern and think, oh yes, it's part of a C major scale. I will use the same fingering that I use when I play C major. Okay, yeah. Because little by little, you're going to see so many patterns in your music, and a lot of them are related to the scales and the arpeggios that you practice. That's one of the reasons why we practice all those scales and arpeggios. Okay, good. All right. At the same time as you brought up your pedal. All right, so let's problem solve a little bit. Why is it that sometimes this C, when you have the pedal down, and this C as well, sounds like this instead of this? Do you hear that subtle, beautiful difference? Why do you think that happens?
Pedal too early.
Pedal too early. And you know what? Every single publisher does that, right? They put the pedal right smack dab on the note. And of course you think, oh, I gotta put it on right there. But you actually have to play the note and then do what? And then put the pedal down. Yes! So can we play this measure to this measure and listen for that? So a little bit early, did you hear that? And what will help is what do you have on that third beat in that preceding measure?
Rest.
Of rest. So what do you want to do with your left hand when you get to that?
Prepare.
Yeah, prepare. Bring it up. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so much better. Isn't that? Good. All right, and let's do the exact same thing in the last line for that C chord. Brilliant, brilliant. Very, very good listening. All right, so now let's play it one more time and let's go ahead and just make sure we know where the phrase is going. And where my fathers died. All right, so think about where your phrase shape always goes to the high point. Okay. All right, let's see. Because you went da, 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 da. And then this one, what did you do? So listen for symmetry between those two phrases. Sublime? Yeah. That was sublime. Good for you. You were satisfied with that, weren't you? Good. Okay. Let's see how good your rhythm is with those dotted quarter notes. Good. You satisfied with that? All right, let's do the same thing with your left hand over there. And I said, Brahms says, play with a flexible wrist and a full, warm, rich tone. Tone is the same as sound. Okay. All right, so let's do that on this nice exercise. So this is still, yes, F major scale fingering. Yes, there you go. Why do you think I wrote that? What does that help you focus in on? That whole first line.
Scale fingering.
Your scale fingering. Yeah. So can I see you do and hear you play the first line one more time to get really comfortable with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Because usually you don't start from the top of a scale, do you? Oh, so I added a little bit of something extra challenging. All right, so did you look at this one? I'm going to listen for wherever the melody is, it comes out over the harmony. That's what I'll listen for. Can you listen for something? Were you looking at our musicality girl? She said, were your phrases played beautifully? And what's her second sentence?
Balance between the
Okay, so which one am I talking about?
the top part.
I was saying wherever the melody is, bring it out over the other hand. So that's balance. Oh, that's balance between the hands. So do you want to listen for the first one our musicality girl asked for, where your phrases played beautifully? Ooh, that's a lot to focus on. Okay. All right, think about looking through the clouds. Red text says what? Our little drip drop roll boy. Ooh, so can we take it from this line and think about where you're going to drop and drop your weight into the keys and when you're going to roll forward. And a tissue box touch release. If you're pulling tissue from a tissue box because you're sad, listening to some Chopin. There's Mr. Chopin. 1, 2, it's going to be even quieter. And then take your time to pull the tissue out. Okay, let's do that last line one more time. So how does that sound different than what you did before?
Soft.
Yeah, it's definitely more soft, more calm, right? And suddenly the birds have flown away, right? And all you see are clouds, right? Yeah, that's nice. So what do you think floating arms means over here? You actually did it. It was really quite nice. I saw you do this. You let your arms, your upper arms be free, which was really nice. And if you want to feel like you're doing some tissue boxes here too, you could, just to flow, that feeling of floating. Thank you for hitting the pedal. All right, so can we drop more here and then, so that you're tapering your phrase? Whoa, so that you don't hear. I'm exaggerating right here. Oh my gosh, a hailstorm. No, we don't want that, right? All right, so embedded in all those phrases are some really good drop rolls. Okay, so let's go ahead and experiment with those. Nice draw, that pedal, oh, the most beautiful before. Let's do that again.